Stellar Crown is indeed a set that has released, and there is a deck that I actually haven't talked about yet, mainly because I didn't really know it was a thing, but it seems to be a bit of a sleeper deck currently over in Japan. However, when it comes to the West, I think this deck has a lot of potential to see some play. And that deck involves a new stellar Pokemon that we will be seeing. That stellar Pokemon being Galvantula EX. This Pokemon is a 260 HP electric terror Pokemon. Has 2 attacks. The first attack costs 1 lightning and 1 colorless and does 110 damage plus an additional 110 more damage if the Pokemon is an EX or V that it is attacking. So you can do 220 damage for obviously a lightning and a colorless. If the Pokemon's weak, which we currently do have quite a lot of Pokemon in the format that are weak to lightning Pokemon, you have Pidgeot EX, you have Lugia V, you have Palkia V, all those Pokemon are weak to electric, so you will be doing even more damage than that. But its second attack is the main reason why this card has been popping up in a lot of players' minds when it comes to the future for TCG and this set being legal. And that attack is its second attack, which for a grass, lightning and fighting energy does 180 damage, but you have to discard all energy from this Pokemon. However, during your opponent's next turn, they can't play any item cards from their hand. People who have played the Pokemon TCG long enough will be very well aware that item locking cards are notoriously annoying to deal with. Back in the X and Y era, Seismitoad EX was a very popular deck with its Quaking Punch, letting you lock out your opponent from using item cards for only a double colourless energy. Even recently, we've had Banette EX pop up in a couple of decks here and there. It made a very well-known appearance at the European International Championship, being played in Gardevoir as well as Giratina, I think it was. For 1 Psychic, you can item lock your opponent and do a decent amount of damage in the process. However, the reason why I think Galvantula is better than those Pokemon is because of the damage. 180 damage is very, very good, and is pretty much able to 2-shot every V and EX Pokemon. Obviously, if it's weak to electricity, you can 1-shot it. However, you may be thinking that obviously it has the downside of discarding all the energy, and it also costs multiple different energy cards to use. So not only do you have to get those free energies onto it, but then they're discarded when you use the attack, so now you need to get them back onto it, which sounds a bit difficult to do every single turn. But you would be wrong, it's actually pretty easy, because you combine this card with another EX Pokemon, being Blissey EX, which has the Happy Switch ability, which allows you to move an energy from one of your Pokemon to another Pokemon. But that doesn't really seem like it fixes the issue, because you still need to get free energy into play. You can only get 1 energy attachment per turn. There are other cards like Crispin, which can attach an energy and then search an energy of a different type, so that could be useful. Lost Zone engine with Mirage Gate, but that requires you to have 7 cards in the Lost Zone, so how exactly are you going to be powering up this attack every turn? Well, thanks to a new item card releasing in Stellar Crown, this is going to be incredibly easy to pull off. That item card being Glass Trumpet. This card says that if you control a Terra Pokemon, you can attach 2 basic energy from your discard to your colourless Pokemon. And since Galvantula is a Terra Pokemon, you can use Glass Trumpet to attach 2 energy cards from your discard to your Blissey EXs, meaning that you use the attack of Galvantula, do 180 damage, discard all the energy, and now your opponent is item locked. They pass the turn back over to you. You activate Glass Trumpet, attach 2 of those energies that were discarded onto your Blissey EXs. Granted, you do need 2 in play. You then use the Happy Switch abilities to move those energies onto Galvantula, attach the missing energy, and now you can do it again. So not only are you item locking your opponent, but you're also doing a pretty decent amount of damage at the same time. The main issue with other item lock Pokemon, such as Seismitoad and, I forgot the name of it, Banette EX, was that they didn't really do a lot of damage. So while their energy costs were a lot easier to fill, you'd be basically taking turn after turn after turn after turn just to knock out one Pokemon, because they only did like, I think 30 damage, meaning that you would have to attack, you get the idea. You have to be attacking for so many turns just to knock out one Pokemon, whereas with Galvantula, you only need to attack once or twice. So if you're up against something like Lugia V, you could use Frugalative to knock out a Lugia take 2 prize cards, discard all your energy, they're now item locked. And then on the next turn you could use something like Boss's Orders, maybe Prime Capture to bring up another Lugia V, activate your Glass Trumpet, get the energy back into play, use Frugalative again, take 2 more prizes and they are still item locked. Which is why I think this deck is a bit of a sleeper deck in the format, and it's something that players should be keeping an eye on, because item lock cards are obviously very annoying to deal with, and this deck can pretty much item lock you every single turn with the right setup, and it's also a pretty bulky deck. Galvantula has 260 HP and Blissey EX has 300 HP, so knocking out one of these Pokemon is going to be very, very troublesome and very annoying to do, especially if they use something like Professor Turo to, put it back into the hand, and then they can just put it back down again. Some deck lists have also been making use of a tool card called Hourglass or something like that, which says that at the end of the turn you can attach a basic energy from your discard to a Pokemon in the active. So you basically attach it to your Galvantula, use the attack, and then you can just attach back one of those energies. So now you don't really need to use your attachment for turn. You could attach to a benched Joltik or another benched Galvantula and power that one up just in case. There's also other tool cards such as Heavy Baton, so if your opponent brings up the Blissey and knocks it out while it has energy, or if you decide to bring up the Blissey and use its attack, which is pretty decent because it allows you to draw until you have, I think, 7 cards in hand. So then if your opponent knocks out, you can move all that energy off of it with the Heavy Baton onto other Blisseys or other Galvantulas, and then start item locking again. It seems like a very, very interesting, very strong item lock deck. However, it does have a few things that obviously bring it down a bit. The fact that you need 3 different types of energy. If you have the Sparkling Crystal, then it is only 2, but that is an A spec, so you can only play 1 of it. It does require like multiple stage 1 Pokemon, so Hyper Aroma could be useful. If you're up against, say, a deck that's only using basic Pokemon, like you're up against Ancient Box, you're not really going to have enough to like knock out and take all the prizes, since you can only play 4 copies of Glass Trumpet, and from the looks of it, lists aren't really playing any item recovery cards. So once you've used those 4 Glass Trumpets, you now pretty much can only use the first attack, which can't knock out some basic Pokemon. So the deck does have its strengths against certain decks, but it also does have its weaknesses. It is a very bulky deck. It seems to be very consistent because you can use stuff like Arven to get your tool cards and your item cards, so you can get a Glass Trumpet. You can also include some sort of like hand manipulation. You can include stuff like Iono, Boss's Orders. Crispin could be very good in this deck because you're playing 3 different types of energy. Professor Turo, in case one of your Blisseys or one of your Galvantulas is threatened to be knocked out, you can just pick it back up and then put it back down again. Other than that, there isn't really much to say about this deck. It just seems to be a pretty cookie cutter style list that item locks your opponent and also does a lot of damage. It plays a few other stall Pokemon. It plays Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, which can't be damaged by Pokemon with abilities, I think it is. You play Radiant Greninja, so you can draw for your deck. You play Bibarel, so you can draw cards. And of course you play, the normal stuff you play in every deck. Ultra Ball, Buddy Buddy Puffin, Earthen Vessel, so you can get your energies. Switch, Super Rod, so you can recycle stuff back. That type of thing. But the main aspect of this deck is to just get a Galvantula, 2 Blisseys, maybe some support Pokemon like a Bibarel and a Greninja, power up the Galvantula, use Frugalative to deal a lot of damage and item lock, and then use Glass Trumpet to get those energies back, and use the Blisseys to move them back onto the Galvantula and attack again. It does seem like a bit of a heavy setup because you need multiple stage 1 Pokemon, but the deck does seem to have a lot of draw power, especially with Blissey allowing you to draw a fresh hand of 7, and also does some decent damage in the process. Will this deck see play? Probably on a rogue level. Over in Japan, it's kind of on that level. But then again, Japan is a different format, played a lot differently because it's best of 1. So in a best of 1 format, control decks aren't really that good. Whereas over in the West, because we have best of 3, then control decks are a lot more prevalent. So maybe this deck could start popping up in the format once Stellar Crown becomes legal, which I believe is next week. And I also believe we have Dortmund, I think it is. Dortmund is next week. So we obviously have that regional to keep an eye on in case this deck does start popping up and seeing play. But other than that, I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments your thoughts about Galvantula EX. Do you think this deck is a bit of a sleeper deck? Will you be playing this deck? What do you think about this deck? Do you think it's going to be the next item lock threat or next control deck that people will need to be aware of when it comes to events in the future? Make sure to like, comment and subscribe and all that to goodness, and I shall see you in the next video, whatever that may be. Take care.